Happy Black History Month! The national theme for 2023 is Black Resistance. Throughout history, African Americans have resisted ongoing systematic oppression in many forms, while also seeking to nurture and protect Black lives through various ways, including faith, education, fraternal and sororal orders, political representation, and activism. By resisting, Black people in America have achieved outstanding triumphs and maintained major successes. It all starts with faith, and it runs deep in the African American culture.
It predates slavery. Resistance started on the slave ships. We refused to leave our spirituality on the continent, and so it survived the Middle Passage. The first resistance was we will obey to survive, but we will go explore our God on our own. So we went to hush harbors, away from the master, to worship in our way. And the Black church was really born in these hush harbors. The community and the religion are always linked together, so that when emancipation finally happens, that tradition's already born. And that became a part of the story of Emory Grove as well.
Emory Grove was originally founded by freed African Americans in 1864. The Emory Grove United Methodist Church is one of the few remaining structures of the historic community.
This church's existence and the existence of the community in such a repressive environment by itself was resistance. Emory Grove was the center for almost 100 years of easily one of the largest African-American camp meetings in the Mid-Atlantic. But it was also a very functional community that had a dance pavilion, a lit baseball field where Negro Leagues came and barnstormed, its own entertainment facility here called the Dewdrop Inn. Emory Grove underwent urban renewal when the town was actually destroyed. This church is now in the process of literally leading and rebuilding the town. To survive for a brighter day, that's resistance.
Carolyn Taylor grew up in the historic Emory Grove and remembers how it used to be before it was utterly destroyed.
It was a very interesting time when people really cared about each other, and that was the focus of your dignity and your pride, which was instilled in us. I think the resistance is that we're going to take care of each other. We're not going to be daunted. We're not going to be defeated. We're going to stand, and we're going to still pass our traditions down to the younger generations so that something will stand of what Emory Grove stood for.
As the late Malcolm X once said,
the burden rests upon the leaders of the Afro-American community to try and instill within the youth especially the desire to further their education, because without it, you're not going anywhere on this earth today.
Education was a form of resistance then, and it still is today.
When you look at the history of African Americans, you'll know that from the beginning of time, education was the one thing that we were essentially kept away from. Society knew that if African Americans were educated, that we would use that education to further our freedom. And so we've been fighting against systems of oppression to keep us away from education for centuries, quite frankly.
The Emory Grove Consolidated Colored Elementary School was built in 1950 to consolidate education for African American students in the local region. This was about 4 years before the landmark Brown versus Board of Education. The school was later named Longview School, and today, the building is used as an MCPS holding school.
So here we are today, still needing to embrace education every way that we can to continue that legacy that so many fought for us to have.
With education comes African American sororities and fraternities, which have helped support the intellectual development of Black communities throughout American history. Some notable members of these organizations are in powerful leadership positions right here in Montgomery County. Members of the Divine Nine and Greek letter organizations have played a significant role in providing resources since the early 1900s. Each were established with unique core values, but share a common goal: to educate and uplift Black communities.
Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, just to give you a little background, was founded on the campus of Howard University on January 15th, 1908. The chapter in Montgomery County, Theta Omega Omega chapter, was chartered in 1969 by 32 women who lived in Montgomery County that really focus on voter registration, supporting legislation that affects the African American community, and reminding people to vote, how to register, how to make sure your registration's up to date. We have a youth leadership program, and I think that will go towards Black resistance by giving youth that confidence to get out there in public and speak up and speak out. So in terms of our members who are probably very well known for their work towards the Black resistance, I would say Coretta Scott King, who was an honorary member of the sorority, but we all know the work that she did throughout her lifetime to help the African American community, but she's one among many.
Alpha Phi Alpha was founded at Cornell University, 1906, the first of the Black Greek-led organizations. Our first resistance, so to speak, is resisting the issues of racism that were attacking the men at Cornell. So the things that we were involved in from the very, very beginning as a fraternity were education and then leadership, and doing those things necessary to raise the level of access of our communities to the full economic and social structures of the country. I was told that alphas are the first, the best, or the greatest in every field. And then they pointed out people like Thurgood Marshall and Dr. Martin Luther King. County Executive Ike Leggett is in our chapter. We have had 2 chiefs of police in our chapter. Resistance is not just pushing back, but to push forward, to change things, and that was our motto operandi.
Some of the Divine Nine members also serve on the Montgomery County Council.
I'm a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the oldest Black fraternity founded in 1906 on the campus of Cornell University.
I am such a proud member of the Montgomery County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, one of the Divine Nine members.
Both council members are prime examples as to why political representation matters and is another form of Black resistance.
Political representation is really important, particularly for the Black community. If you look at the period after the Civil War and Reconstruction, we had over 2,000 Black elected officials throughout the country, but that was all wiped away by Jim Crow. And you went to a point where you almost had no political representation by African Americans. Not only did they not have political representation, you didn't have access to the vote. And that had devastating consequences. The policies that we've seen over the years, redlining, segregation of schools, disinvestment in communities, poor water systems, things that we're still dealing with today in places like Flint and Baltimore, and go down the line.
These forms of resistance, whether it's through picket lines or peaceful assemblies, have always resulted in a push to policy making.
This adds another opportunity for us to solicit revenue from short-term rentals.
You know, that's what attracted me to policy making and allowed me to, serve in this position, was the history of resisting policies that don't work for our community and ensuring that we assemble the right people to have a seat at the table.
You need a lot of political will to get it done. And I think that's an important part of representation and resistance too, is that we can't just get 1 or 2 people in office. We've got to keep working with them, because those same systems that kept us out of office, that kept us from voting, are still active, and we must be just as active in counteracting that.
I will forever stand in solidarity with the resistance, and just because I have a seat at the table, it doesn't mean that struggle ends.
With political representation comes some form of activism, something civil rights activists and the late former United States Congressman John Lewis referred to as good trouble. Right here in Montgomery County, you'll find some who have done their part to resist against oppression. That includes Miss Willie Pearl Mackey King, a former member of the executive staff for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. She worked for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and helped transcribe his letter from a Birmingham jail.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
I was there with him when he went to jail. I actually saw him handcuffed and put in the jail. I was frightened, but at the same time, I was dedicated to being with Dr. King in that movement, to try and do something to help our people. He asked for paper and pen in the jailhouse, and he was told, according to him, that this is not a library, you're in jail. So they gave him nothing to write with, write on. So Dr. King started to write on the edges of the newspaper and toilet paper, paper napkins, greasy sandwich bags, anything that he could find to write on. In the meantime, Clarence Jones would slip that out of the jail under his jacket, give it to Wyatt Walker or to me, and it was my job then to type it. And that was the beginning of the Birmingham jail letter. And what he wanted to convey to people is, it is now time for waiting to be put aside. We cannot wait any longer. When we boycotted, that was a form of resistance. If we said we're going to march in the streets, and we do that still, then that's a form of resistance today. And that's what we use to resist the things that are happening that are not supposed to be happening to us.
Although resistance against oppression continues, that won't dim the light for the bright future of African Americans.